Strange.
Strange.
Strange. Strange. Strange. Strange.
Juan.
And it's time for Strange Juans with host Tom Cap for Strange Brew Podcast.
And this is Juan from the Juan on Juan Podcast.
Let's get strange.
Bro, it's been like 2 years. I think we should do a new intro.
What do you want to do it like then?
I don't know. I think we just it always catches me off guard for some reason.
This is Strange Juans.
Yeah, welcome back. I started early. I shot my shot too quickly at the beginning. And I was like, welcome, and then it freaking started. I was like, oh, okay. We're doing this. We're doing this. So welcome back to another episode of Strange Juans.
Strange Juans, yes.
So, dude, I found this topic to be so
We're not going to introduce ourselves or anything?
Nah, bro. The people know who we are. I'm
Billy's
Juan
like,
from
Billy's like, we need to keep mentioning our names. I was like, what if this is the very first episode I listened to, and they're like, man, I really am curious about what these guys' names are.
I'm Juan from the Juan on Juan Podcast.
And I'm Tom Cat from Strange Brew Podcast. And together we make one, and that is Strange Juans.
Strange Juans, bro. You see what we did there?
I know. I got a whiskey like I usually do. Why not?
I got a Pepsi. I was taking a nap.
Well,
earlier.
I do whiskey and this is
because you're an alcoholic. That's why. Because all Canadians are alcoholics.
So I did a whiskey, and Chelsea's mom, she got a case. She loved it so much when she was drunk that she got a case of maple water. And I said that to Kyle on the Big Dumb podcast, and he was like, "Isn't that doesn't that run through your veins?" And I was like, "Funny, man." But it's like maple water with whiskey. It's fucking good though. It's good.
Oh geez. So yeah, welcome back to the show.
Yep.
And dude, this I found some parallels. The last Strange Ones we did was on Commander Valiant Thor, yes. Right? And I really enjoyed that episode. I was listening back to it because I listened back to it because when I was researching this, I'm like, wait, didn't we talk about this? Like I was listening back.
That's for sure.
Yeah, a lot. Obviously that came after, so you're going to see the correlations between the two, but today we're going to be talking about the Ashtar Galactic Command. And this is going to be a revisit for my show. I did it back in March of 2020, and I dug up some new information. I listened back to that episode. It was episode 26 of the One on One Podcast. Really good episode. Yeah, it was a real throwback, absolutely. So this is going to be a revisit as far as when it goes on my RSS feed, because hey, it's a cool topic to talk about and to think about. So what is the Ashtar Galactic Command? It's a conspiracy theory that came about from one man claiming to have been contacted by ETs.
That happens a lot.
Guess who he was contacted by, bro? By people from Venus.
Oh, weird. That is a weird tie-in. And this does tie in with the Galactic Federation, which when I was, 16, 17, I really started looking at aliens. All this stuff came up, especially when YouTube wasn't, I guess you could say, as censored as it is now, and how they it's mucky. You can't really find videos that you used to be able to. They've obviously deleted stuff, but even stuff like this is kind of hard to find. You just pull up stuff about government and Biden and how great the government is. And stuff like that on YouTube now. But like what got me into it, I was like, looking at this like, oh my God, the Galactic Federation. And then I'd be watching all these videos of people with robot voices talking. You know how it's like the auto type voice command thing. And it's just like, I am Ashtar from the Galactic Federation. We bring you a message of light and peace. And it's like, there's so many videos specifically about the Galactic Federation and Palladians too. That is like just in this robot voice, and they just for 20 minutes talk about how they love you and they feel our vibrations and things will change when the world awakens. It's just fucking funny.
Yeah. So there's still people till this day who are putting out messages from the Ashtar Galactic Command.
I saw that. I listened to one, and he was talking about, how we're coming out of COVID and the lockdowns, and they feel our energy and our sadness because of the pandemic. And I was like, man, and then he's like, this guy's like, I got a message straight from Ashtar. And it's like, sure you do, man.
The reason I got into this topic first 2 years ago was because in the 1970s, there was a broadcast that was hijacked by these beings, right? And
actually?
we'll get what?
Actually, weird. I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah,
Like
no,
on TV or like a radio station.
Yeah, no, on TV. And
Sure.
we'll get into that. So it eventually turned into a UFO cult, right? Which we all know.
Yeah.
I love cults, especially ET cults, which are amazing. So
I bet you there's a cult where people dress up as ET from the movie ET, and then they all get in a room together.
Forgot about that movie.
I know. They all get in a room together, and then they, draw from a hat, and then they get to see which ET gets to sleep with the other ET.
Probably, bro.
I have that meme of Bill. It's just like because Billy, one of the hosts on Strange Juans podcast, he has really long fingers. He calls them his ET fingers. Billy. And then I posted a meme where it was ET's finger, and I was like, when Billy goes to finger his girlfriend.
So I wanted to give a little bit background before we dove into the Ashtar Galactic Command. Its origins, right? It's always good to know where things come from. So we have these three main points. Charlie, and I'm gonna butcher his last name, Reich, something like that. He was a German immigrant. We have Frank Kritzer, and we have Giant Rock. And
what?
Yeah, we have Giant Rock. So check this out.
That's a pretty awesome name.
No, Giant Rock is a place, bro.
Oh, I thought I thought there was some guy named Giant Rock, and I'm like, I'm not gonna shit on his indigenous name, whatever.
So the high desert of California, the Mojave region near Landers. This area is home to Giant Rock. It is a granite stone that is said to be the world's largest freestanding boulder. This thing is 7 stories tall and covers 5,800 square feet of ground. So whatever that is for you Canadians, eh? Yeah. And Native Americans regard this ground as holy ground. Shamans have drawn spiritual strengths from this boulder, and it's a huge. You can look it up. Giant Rock. Look it up.
There's all these not even monoliths, but just natural stones. Formations and stones that are constantly worshipped and stuff like that. And even in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? They build their thing on top of that massive rock. I can't remember what the rock's called, but it's that big stone, like monolith looking thing. And they put all their command center up there, so then they can come down and go beep boop, and they communicate through sound.
The Hopi people knew about this rock, and they would gather around it with other tribes in the area to celebrate the coming seasons. It is also said that the magic in this rock represents the heart of Mother Earth, because it's a huge. Can you imagine that, dude? A 7-story tall rock. Excuse me. It's a giant rock that people claim this place to be quote unquote special, and it is a place of electromagnetic forces and supposedly an electromagnetic vortex. Remember, we did the 12-mile vortices. So it's probably along one of the major ley lines. Yes. But it's weird that it's this huge rock that's just out of nowhere.
Which another thing we could get into on Strange Juans is ley lines.
Yeah, we can do ley lines 100%.
Because there's substance to that.
We can do that with Mark. Mark is real big into ley lines.
Yeah, let's do that for a Strange Juans for sure.
So in 1887, we have this Charlie character. He was a German immigrant trying to make a living as a prospector in the area. And prospectors were mining for gold, right? Yeah. They were mining.
They usually have overalls on and a toothpick in their mouth, and they're always talking like this.
Well, he was German.
Find my gold.
He probably wasn't talking like that. And I'm not even going to try and impersonate a German person. I'm going to just butcher it. So his homestead, where he lived, is the area where Van Tassel, which is our next character, his Integratron now stands. And we'll get to that a little bit later, the Integratron, okay? It gets a little weird. We're going to get strange on this one, guys. So this area has a lot of history, including nomadic tribes, prospectors, World War II spies, and frequent UFO sightings. That's a mixed bag there.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Huh. We have Kritzer was a shortwave radio enthusiast, and he claimed a stake at Giant Rock, the area. He was handy enough that he built a house under the rock, bro. Look this rock up. It's 7 stories tall. Okay. It's 7 or 4 stories tall. And he dug out a 400 square foot area space underneath the rock and built
then he put a flag there and said it was his.
No, he put an antenna at the top of the rock, and he built a 1-bedroom with one storage room underneath the rock.
Jesus
And-
Christ. It is literally a big rock.
Yes, dude, it's a huge
It doesn't even look
rock.
like a mountain or anything. It's just a massive
No, it's a rock. It's a rock, bro.
Jesus
So
Christ.
he supposedly he was inspired by watching a tortoise in the desert dig in the ground, because some of these tortoises will dig these little barrels under the ground. So he was inspired supposedly by that, and he thought, hey, I can build a house underground. It would be cooler in the because we're in the desert. It'll be cooler. I'll be comfortable. So the dude literally built his house under a rock, and he lived there. He lived there, bro. He would eventually go on to, and people said he was a weird character. Imagine you're living under a rock in the middle of the desert. You got to be a weirdo. So people refer to him.
He's like, I'm a hermit crab.
He had a little bit of a local celebrity status, and he was known to be, quote unquote, a cantankerous old goat that would shoot you as soon as he looked at you. That's what they referred to him as.
Jesus.
And we have here, he would eventually go on to establish an airfield at Great Rock. It would be like a little airport that he eventually established. There you go, right there. Yeah, a piece broke off. You see that piece that broke off of it?
Yeah, I saw that everyone spray painted it. But there
so they started vandalizing it.
Man, could you see him?
Yeah, they started to vandalize it. So, and we'll get to that a little bit later.
Yeah, I bet the native people were pissed about that.
So after that, yeah, and I also thought about that when I was writing this episode up. I was editing it up because I still had the original PowerPoint from 2020. And I said, man, well, how would the indigenous people of this area feel about
after probably, hundreds of years.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Of this thing being like their place of worship for a lot of them.
So in comes Van Tassel, whom was fascinated with airplanes, leading him to obtain his pilot's license while still a teenager. He dropped out after the 10th grade and took a job at the Cleveland Municipal Airport. And he was eventually offered a job by his uncle Glenn Payne, who owned a garage in Santa Monica.
Is he related to Thomas Paine?
I don't know.
The revolutionarist?
Who knows? Probably does have ties, because probably. You could probably look it up. So it was at this garage, at his uncle's garage, that he met Kritzer, the guy that was living under the rock.
Yeah, that name sounds super familiar to me.
Van Tassel and his uncle befriended Kritzer because they would fix his car. They would help him stock up food and money and
wash his rock.
Yeah, they would wash his rock. And Kritzer promised them a cut of whatever he would eventually mine. So a year after meeting Kritzer, Van Tassel was invited to the area where he was mining. Van Tassel and his uncle both drove out to the area and saw that he was living under this rock. So they pull up and they're like, wait, where's this guy? Where's this guy's house at? And homeboy opens up probably a door from the bottom of the rock. He's like, hey, what's up, guy? What's up? How you guys doing? He's just opened up the rock. Yeah, this is my home.
He's a miner. He probably built his underground base with just a pickaxe and that's it.
Probably.
And I feel like he's dressed like Yosemite Sam's
This is the late 1800s, early 1900s. So probably, dude. Seriously. So during World War II, Kritzer came under suspicion and he was thought to be a German spy because of his radio hobby, how I had mentioned earlier. He was this shortwave radio enthusiast, and he was killed in a botched law enforcement raid in 1942.
What? Actually?
Yes. So legend states...
Bill Cooper, man.
I don't know that story. Is that the one with the...
William Cooper. No, William Cooper. Oh, that's DC or DC Cooper.
DB Cooper, right?
Yeah. So William Cooper, right, the one that wrote The Pale Horse. Behold the Pale Horse. They claimed he had all these firearms, which he probably did, and then they broke into his home and they shot him to death. The sheriffs did. I eventually definitely want to get into William Cooper. That is a very thick topic.
So legend states that all his possessions were taken by the government. And some say that when they threw in a tear gas canister into his house, into the underground bunker, it lit one of his dynamite caches and just blew him up. Yeah, they say, and they blew him up.
Quotations.
For the next 15 years after that,
haunted this rock.
Well, probably, but Giant Rock remained closed and locked. So for 15 years, it was sanctioned off.
Okay, did that piece that cracked off, was that because of the explosion? Or
I believe that came after.
So strange.
I believe that came after. So during the next 15 years, Van Tassel would go on to become a flight test engineer. He worked for Lockheed International and Douglas Aircraft in the 1930s. He also flew in World War II with a Howard Hughes. I don't know who that is, but they say that this Hughes character wanted to live forever, that he wanted to be frozen until they figured out what, you know,
Walt Disney?
Almost like a Walt Disney. And
Literally.
they say that this is what influenced Van Tassel to move into the desert, which this plays a major role later on. I
was going to say Van Tassel sounds like a drag queen. Here comes Christy Van Tassel.
After visiting Giant Rock with his family on vacation, he was able to apply for leasing property from the Bureau of Land Management and that's BLM, by the way, in 1945. And by 1947, he moved his family onto the land surrounding Giant Rock.
So he bought it out after they killed Homeboy.
Yeah, they leased it. So Van Tassel would go on to reopen the airfield Kritzer had established, along with a cafe. And
interesting, he opened an airfield.
Yeah, people would come in and they would fly in on their little smaller aircrafts. And
yeah,
they
like
would
biplanes and stuff like that.
But eventually the U.S. government would start to use this airfield, by the way. He started to lease it to them. He says this in a 1946 interview.
Do you want to try out your new Nazi flying saucers here? It's a perfect location.
The Van Tassels would go on to hold UFO conventions at Giant Rock for almost 20 years to raise money for a project that would make him a quote-unquote noted man of the region. Thousands of believers would come through, and Van Tassel would receive donations from his supporters.
What year was this? When all the UFO conferences were held, do you know?
1959.
That's crazy. How, like, in the 50s, they were doing UFO conferences at this rock. That's
11,000 people would show up, bro. They would attend his conventions. And Van Tassel...
This is before... Actually, I was like, this is kind of just after, well, probably, what is it, like 8 years after Roswell. So
yes, because that was 48, I believe.
Yeah, 47 and 48. But that's interesting that this is... I think after that event, everyone was like, UFOs are real, man.
It was after the Babylon working rituals or holding rituals that Parsons did with L. Ron Hubbard. So it was
weird. That's also weird.
They say that they opened up a portal to another dimension. That's why we get UFOs. Which I'm doing a whole episode on Jack Parsons coming out soon. So he would have 11,000 people attend his UFO conventions, and Van Tassel would go on to work on the Integratron while writing books on time travel and rejuvenation. He spent 18 years building the Integratron. It is a 48-foot high, 50-foot in diameter, non-metallic structure designed by Van Tassel as a rejuvenation and time machine. But check this out, dude.
Is it a transformer?
It is still up today. You can go and you can get something called a sound bath, okay? Where you lay down and they do some sound therapy for like 30 minutes. But the craziest thing about this is that the location of where it was is essential to the part of its function. The actual site of the building was worked out according to a complex set of theories involving the Earth's magnetic field and the Integratron's relationship to the Great Pyramid in Egypt and Giant Rock. So again, back to the ley lines. This thing is along a ley line. And he claimed, this is where it gets a little weird, that UFO channelings and ideas from scientists such as Nikola Tesla led to the design of the Integratron. So Homeboy was talking to Nikola Tesla, bro.
Yeah, and then they took away all his shit and killed him.
He said in this interview from 1946 that one night at 2 a.m, he was woken up by what was an aircraft that landed at the airfield because he was living there.
Yeah.
And these people came out, and this being woke him up and was like, hey, come aboard our aircraft. We're from Venus.
You want to come upstairs?
Yes. So they took him up, and he was talking about all this anti-gravity and all this other stuff. So I want to get real quick into what happened to him, because he ended up dying in, let me see what year he ended up dying in. I don't have the year, but Van Tassel planned to be the first human to experience the power of the Integratron, but 3 weeks later, Van Tassel had died February 9th of 1978 of an apparent heart attack. It was a true shock to his friends and family, since Van Tassel had been extremely health-conscious individual. So again, Who
Remember-
knows
yeah.
if the government was onto him?
Well, remember
and-
the FBI, you can see it. It was in a museum. I'm sure it's gone now. But the heart attack gun, they could shoot
Yes.
something into your
Yeah.
chest. It would dissolve and it would cause you to have a heart attack. And that was like, I think that was in the 50s that was created. So people don't forget that the people in power in the military and the FBI have way more technology that we could imagine they do.
So I want to go here one day,
That would
Tom,
be pretty
because
cool.
this place supposedly I was watching videos on it. There is this thing where you can go, so it's like a dome shaped type of thing, and you can go on one side of this building, the Integratron, and whisper on this one side of it, and you can hear it on the other side, bro. People
That's
were like,
trippy.
"Oh, I didn't believe it," but we would whisper on this side of it, and you would hear on the other side. So this design was so precise that the resonance within the building was just to the T. That, again, it's along a ley line. There's a reason why the Egyptian pyramids are along these ley lines, because the ancients knew of the magnetic fields of the earth that had some sort of power. If you were able to tap into frequencies, that's what Nikola Tesla talks about. If you're able to look at the metaphysical, science would advance in 1 year more than it would in 10 years. And I'm paraphrasing that, but
that's, obviously I have high respect for indigenous people. They are connected to Mother Nature and a lot of energies on this earth more than I think anyone else is.
That was Van Tassel, and Van Tassel plays a critical role in the whole Ashtar Galactic Command. So we have Ashtar is the name of an extraterrestrial being. Then there is Ashtar Command, and then came Ashtar Galactic Command, and then others after that. So it's a cult. So it started to evolve after the fact, because when you have a group of people coming together, ideas are going to change, right?
Yeah.
So referred to as Ashtar, sometimes called Ashtar Sharan, was a name given to an extraterrestrial being or a group of beings which a number of people claim to have channeled. They are also referred to as Guardians of the Universe, which I thought was pretty badass. I think that's an awesome
Well, that's
name.
what the Galactic Federation is all about. Is there a bunch of, just like the Andromeda Council, it's a bunch of different aliens that hang out and discuss things of how the way they can help planet Earth, but I haven't seen that help yet. So
at the time that I wrote this episode back in 2020, their website had who is the Ashtar Galactic Command, and it said the Peace Corps of God. And their website also said, and I couldn't find it again because it's down. Their website also said the Ashtar, and this is quote, the Ashtar Command are God's angels of the harvest, assisting Lord Jesus Sananda, the Christ teacher for the earth during this time of planetary ascension, and his mission is to free humanity from the matrix and return the earth to the Christ vibration.
Yes, the whole Christ consciousness is a lot of ufologists and alien contactees. They constantly talk about the Christ consciousness. Even that dude I've talked about before is like, I think it's George Calavisius, the Australian dude that had connections with the Andromeda Council, much like the Galactic Federation. And I can't find anything about him, where he went. I have no clue. And I used to watch all of his videos and I can't find him anymore. And he talked about meeting with a bunch of different aliens and how they're going to help us and raise our vibration. And I don't know where these people go to, honestly. They just disappear.
The FBI, bro, they ascended, dog. They ascended. So
that could be. They could have picked him up, man.
The main superstar being George Van Tassel, who was said to have contacted or channeled the Ashtar Galactic Command in 1952. Since then, a lot of different people have come out and appeared and said that they've been channeled.
Of course, tons of people.
A lot of people, right? So it's pretty much a cult.
Well, have you seen Barbara Mancini? I think her name is. No. She channels a Palladian. I think I told you about it before, where she goes in this like trance where it's just weird because she seems like a totally different person. It's quite convincing. Either she's actually channeling some being, Palladian alien, or she's a really good actress, because she just goes in this thing where she talks normal. She's like a British woman. And all of a sudden she's like, we are the Palladians and we are here to help you ascend. And she like speaks in this weird like accent that doesn't seem to exist on Earth. I know. It's fun though. I like it.
It's seen as a UFO cult. Now check this out, bro. And a UFO cult is any religion, in which
Heaven's Gates cult, definitely. But you know what? At least they're not telling them to cut off their balls, right? So.
In which the existence of ET beings operating UFOs is an element or belief. So we have Scientology and Xenu and the Galactic Federation. And Scientology was also established around the time that Ashtar Galactic Command was established in 1953, I believe.
L. Ron Hubbard writing a bunch of science fiction books.
He was he was the author
I can turn this
wrote,
into a religion.
Yeah. And before he died, he said, hey, you know, the only way to make money is to establish a religion. And this is a guy who wrote the most science fiction ever.
And you don't have to pay taxes, man. You can have all these celebrities just pay for everything while you brainwash them.
Bro, they own entire blocks here in Florida.
I know.
And they have
whole
huge
thing,
buildings.
I eventually want to get into, obviously, L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology, but the whole thing of their, like, what's that called where they have to hold those two metal sticks and they, like, question them? And then if it goes off, like, I can't remember, it's something that L. Ron Hubbard created.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. And then it's like, if you go off, then you're not part of it. And you're lying.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I don't know the name.
Have you seen the documentary with, what's her name? Leanne Rimes or whatever? I mean, that's not her name.
No, I haven't.
The chick from King and Queens. That actress that was part of Scientology. You should check it out. It's called, I think it's called Inside Scientology or something like that. Me and Chelsea watched it, my woman, and it was pretty good. Like, she goes into how, I think she doesn't even go, I think she just dips her toe into a lot of the things that happen behind closed doors. But even what she says is pretty horrific in the way they treat people too.
Yeah, they're horrible.
It's crazy.
It's a cult, so they're super horrible. We have here, typically people who follow UFO cults, they are,
losers.
You know, these ETs are interested in the welfare of humanity. And they're always wanting to disarm humanity from nuclear weapons. Yeah, turn off the nukes. It's always usually the same message. And a lot of people believe that angels are demons, or that angels are aliens, or non-physical beings. And you can take this in a lot of different ways, because a lot of ancient scripture, the book of Enoch, you have angelology, you have demonology, and things of that nature.
But that's where they get it from. But then it's like, because you heard it in the Bible, but these stories could have been, or whatever, you know, religious script they have, but it could be that these people saw real aliens and they wrote it inside of these books. And then these people, like even the stuff I've posted that get a lot of attention on TikTok about like reptilians and stuff, they're like, they're not aliens, they're demons. And that's what William Cooper believed in too.
Well, keep in mind that the word daemon is either a benevolent being or a malevolent. So that's a loaded term.
Yeah, it's true.
So take that as you will. We have here Van Tassel was, again, the most important person for the cause. In 1947, he established one of the largest UFO centers, becoming one of the most successful and well-known UFO meeting centers of its time. In 1953, he created his cult, the Ministry of Universal Wisdom. And this was also the year that Scientology was established.
It's like, don't call it a cult, though, okay? Okay, just don't call it a cult.
I'm sorry, Ministry of Universal Wisdom. And Van Tassel's organization, they were all about investigating and encouraging the healing arts, but its prime focus was to, quote-unquote, collect and analyze UFO phenomenon and interview contactees. So they would interview abductees,
like MUFON,
contactees, all this stuff.
Yeah, it's like MUFON.
In 1952, Van Tassel himself claimed to have received messages via telepathic communication from an extraterrestrial and interdimensional being named Ashtar.
That's what they all say. Look at Alistair Cuckley, as you call him.
Yes. Well, yeah, Iowas, right? Again, it starts with an A, so who knows?
Yeah, it could be the same
He
thing.
became the first metaphysical superstar of the flying saucer age. And Van Tassel would lead weekly meditations in the room underneath the rock from the 1950s to the 1970s, which he claimed led to UFO contacts.
I'm not going to lie, I would go there
Me
and
too.
do that. If he was doing that right now, if I could go out there, I would go meditate, and I wouldn't be there every week, but I'd go like, once every couple months. But it's the whole thing with, what's his name that does the whole like UFO exposure. Why can't I think of his name? He's a doctor. And he does these meditations to raise frequencies, and they've said that they've seen UFOs materialize and dematerialize I don't know why I can't think of his name. It's driving me absolutely nuts. And some of the fans will probably shout at me, but it's that guy that's a doctor, and he did the Syrian alien, where it was a little baby alien, and they say it was a real alien. Oh, God,
I don't know
I
who
can't
that
think of
is.
his name.
But
it'll come to me.
He said from these channelings, these ideas, that Nikola Tesla was talking to him, and eventually led him to building the Integratron. And then I put on here, he was said to have been contacted by ETs from Venus, whom took him onto his starship and as a spaceship. And I said, Commander Valiant Thor, is that you?
Literally, it's like the same thing. It is weird in how they write. Like, as you said on the Valiant Thor episode, it's weird because it kind of ties in how, like, they say that, like, Venus is obviously a ball of
check this out, dude.
light and shit. And
Van Tassel also interpreted the Christian Bible in terms of extraterrestrial intervention.
Just like Valiant Thor.
Yes.
And what's his name? The guy that
Dr.
loved
Strange or
Dr. Strangeous.
Yeah, and he said that they had intervention in the evolution of human race, which you have the Anunnaki as well. And he claimed that Jesus was a being from outer space. And I put on here, I said, is that why the Romans killed him?
Yeah, Stephen Greer. Dr. Stephen Greer is the one I was thinking of.
Oh, he's the one that he's been on Mark's podcast, I think.
Dr. Stephen Greer is pretty. He knows his stuff. Like people call him a shill or whatever, but he has released a lot of information that I believe is quite true. But it's all connected. Seems like it's all connected to all the same shit, really.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Alien Prometheus.
I don't think so. Prometheus?
It has the engineers. Yeah. So the script of that movie, Prometheus, being one of my favorite movies, there's a scene in the movie
I gotta check that because I love Alien.
David ate the android.
Played by what's his name? Yeah.
Fassbender. Yes.
Yeah.
He talks to these engineers, which made us. They engineered the human race, and there is a dialogue between the two that they cut short in the movie, but they didn't put any subtitles to it. And going back behind the scenes of the movie, they mentioned that the exchange between the two that didn't make it to the final cut was the engineer telling David, the android, that they tried to save their race, so the human race, and they had sent out someone alluding to Jesus, but that they killed him. And they took this out of the script.
Well, there's this. That's pretty crazy. They mentioned that because there's that idea that obviously Jesus was a person not of Earth, and that's why they called him God's son. But there's also the idea that people always talk about is that Jesus sacrificed himself on the cross, and he knew it was going to happen, and he did it so he could fight the battles in the astral world. Is how the idea goes. So he sacrificed himself so that he could go into the astral world and fight all the demons and whatever entities exist in that astral world, and fight from behind the scenes and while watching over Earth. Like I've always said, like, I'm not religious. I don't know if Jesus is real or if he was based off Horus or any of these other stories from Egypt and all that stuff. But if he shows up, I'll make sure I believe in him.
So we're going to get into the Ascended Masters here soon, because that's what Helena Blavatsky was talking about, right? That all these beings all throughout history were Ascended Masters of this higher level of consciousness from Shambhala, right? The hollow earth or from wherever. And the Ministry of Universal Wisdom taught that all humans have the power to tap into the universal mind of God, which facilitates evolutionary progress, such as that was exemplified by Jesus and Ashtar. And right, this is something that I relate to the Akashic records. Blavatsky talked about that. The cosmic consciousness, the Platonic nous, which they believed in the universal mind. So I believe in that, bro. I believe that there is this thing that you're able to tap into and download, right? The OG cloud. That's what Moses tapped into.
I got good old Zoomers on the way. They probably should be. They probably was here tomorrow or Friday, and that's also a way to use, I believe, to reach maybe not like something like a Christ consciousness or whatever. You download.
What'd you buy? What?
Mushrooms. They help. Zoomers, I guess if people call them, but mushies. They help. I believe they're a way to speed up even meditation processes and reach some higher state of consciousness. I 100% believe that exists.
Yeah. And Van Tassel claimed that by ascending the universal mind, he could receive messages not only from Ashtar, but from humans who had died, such as Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
And he was the one that gave to him the ideas for the Integratron.
There's the same group of people, okay, that believe in Ashtar and shit, are the same people that believe like Robert Kennedy Jr. is actually working in the astral world and he's actually helping us, and he will that he's gonna come back. There is a crowd of people that believe that like that JFK is gonna come back on a flying saucer and he's gonna tell us everything's gonna be okay.
Van Tassel claimed that his method of communication wasn't channeling. He said that it was a new form of telepathic communication with these quote-unquote sources, a method which included both natural human abilities and the use of an alleged advanced form of alien technology. And I think of why the Egyptians built the pyramids. Were they on to this type of technology?
I'm sure they were, because they aligned them perfectly up with Orion's belt, but that makes me think it's connected to the reptilians, because the people who do research into this stuff always claim the reptilians are from Draco's Arcanus, right? That are inside the system of Orion's belt. And it's just weird that the pyramids line up. And then you have that story, right, of Napoleon going into a sarcophagus inside the Great Pyramids. And then he shot out of his...
Aleister Crowley did the same thing too, bro. You broke up there, Tom. Thomas, you broke up there for a second.
My internet seems good. I know. I saw you did too for a second. My internet's not telling me it's bad. So
6:32. Let me write this down.
Yes, write it down because you're editing this.
Yes. So we have here. He claimed that it was not channeling, and that what he was using was not paranormal or metaphysical. That he was able to attune himself to a resonance. That these frequencies were being sent at, and he was able to pick these up. And application of an advanced extraterrestrial science that anyone could implement with proper training and meditation techniques. And that's what prayer is. Prayer is meditation. So I believe that, that you're able to tune yourself to a certain Christ consciousness.
I'm a big fan of Russell Brand, right? I think he's, especially recently, been saying some very on point and making on-point discussions about what's happening in the world between a lot of things. And he gives a good point. He gives you facts, and then he jokes about it, never gives his full-on opinion. But he talks about how, because he quit drugs and stuff like that a long time ago, that he meditates a lot, he's spiritual, and he can do breathing exercises that literally make him high and feel like he's connected, like he's almost on mushrooms. Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's get high on your own supply. So when you have a group of people, the dynamic is going to end up changing. So this movement evolves, and eventually you had a lot of different people saying that they were being contacted, but
one dude's like, you got to cut off your balls because there's no gender in the afterlife.
Yeah, and so you had two different sects of these Ashtar people, and their messages were not correlating. They were being contradictory, and a particular person named Robert Short broke away and began his own group called Ashtar Command. And by the 1950s, this idea of this galactic law enforcement agency preparing for the rescue of humanity became a thing. It was well established. And you have a lot of these different movies. And in Hollywood, they do it all the time. Independence Day.
Drip feed information is what I think.
Yes. And famous channelers claimed their return. But as time went on, their predictions gave them a bad reputation because they kept saying things that were going to come true, and they eventually didn't. So you have that aspect. Their reputation wasn't the best.
People that do that. It's like the world's going to end in 2011. No, wait, I was wrong by 5 years. Oh, it's going to end. And then it's like, no, it's all good. Look at Y2K. There's been so many predictions for end of days stuff, and then it never seems to come to fruition.
I wanted to drag into this the Ascended Masters and the Ancient Astronaut, which has been a concept that has been around for a long time, something that got me into conspiracies, and it's something that fascinates me, that there has been this ancient civilization that was super technologically advanced. And I've always said, why, if they're so advanced, why would they need us? But you have the Anunnaki.
Mine gold.
Yeah, exactly. You have the Anunnaki, and you have the same group of entities all throughout history that have the different names.
That would be funny.
You have H.P. Lovecraft with Cosmicism. You have the Call of Cthulhu and the Cthulhu mythos. And Theosophy, which refers to these ET masters as the Ascended Masters, and Helena
they're all
Blavatsky,
white with blue eyes.
yeah, they wrote about this. She wrote about this in the Secret Doctrines in 1888, and in the Secret Doctrine, there's a line in there, and it's a Sanskrit term that is Ashtar Vidya, meaning the technology of advanced warfare of the type mentioned in the Mahabharata, right? These epics.
Yep.
And which is crazy. And you have these depictions of galactic nuclear wars, right? We talked about Mohenjo-Daro, the canyon on Mars.
Now I've become Death, the Destroyer of Worlds. But the thing is, too, right? They said that those images depicted in like hieroglyphs sometimes and imagery around the world from ancient cultures, when they're saying, "Oh, it's a war from the heavens that destroyed the earth or almost did."
Zeus with his lightning bolt.
It could have been nuclear weapons that they had, or some sort of weapon that would cause that. And I was gonna say, it would be funny if they created humans and used our DNA, right? And the ancient aliens came in, like the Anunnaki or whatever, and they used us to mine gold, but that gold that we were mining was just meant to power their cell phones that they had. We were like the African kids fucking digging up all the copper and everything else they need to create all these solar technologies and fucking battery-powered cars and electric cars.
Another thing that I brought up as well was all these famous religious paintings with little UFOs in the background.
There's so many. It would be a good topic to get in, even talk about that alone, because we could definitely have a 45 minute to an hour just talking alone just about the paintings and depictions that we see even on fucking cave art. Like cave art by indigenous people way back in the day, and you see these imageries even of like gray looking aliens, like creepy aliens with big eyes, and they're white and they're just tall, and there's a lot of imagery on cave art of that specifically too.
I've taken different stances on the alien theory. I did an episode with a Dr. Michael P. Masters where he talks about how aliens are us from the future, and they're time traveling back to study us, because if you understand time, depending on which theory you want to go with, all the events are already there, and you can just tap into whichever part. That's why when you see all these movies and shows about time travel, they go right back to the future. Don't mess with your future self or your past self. You make sure that he doesn't see you, because it's gonna disrupt the time continuum. So we see this. And I've always said, what if Elon Musk is eventually able to invent some sort of time-traveling technology, and he leases it out as like some tourism that people are able to go and travel through time. I don't
trust him at all. But also there's the theory of gray aliens, right? That gray aliens are us from the future, and because of some sort of catastrophic event or cataclysm that we were forced to go underground, and then our bodies eventually adapted to living in cave systems where our eyes got larger so we could see in the dark, and our skin got pale because we weren't in sun anymore, and now they're coming back and they're sticking stuff up our butts just to see what happens.
A lot of people claim that the initial account of the Ashtar message to Van Tassel was not a spiritual message per se. And throughout the 1950s and 60s, a lot of people started saying that the movement began to play more of that ascended master roles in its narratives. And till this day, we know that if you just Google Ashtar Galactic Command, you're going to get videos of people. The latest one that I saw was 7 months ago. Yeah, that they talk about.
From like not even that, like I think like a month or two ago. There's a guy claiming that it was the voice of Ashtar, and I'm like, yeah, this alien's gonna record a microphone speaking about what's going on.
They're just trolling us. And these ascended masters ultimately would be like representatives of these, so they're diplomats of the Ashtar Galactic Command, this galactic federation, if you will. That's who these beings were, these ascended masters. So there's an evolution. So we're going to talk about the Ashtar movement and how it's evolved. And it evolved into a movement that had no central authority for several decades up into the 1990s. And it was being described as the common property of a diffuse New Age spiritual milieu. And a milieu is a movement or generation.
Well, then they got the internet, right? Where they can be like, you know what we should do? We should make a bunch of videos and we'll put it in computer voices, and people will be convinced that aliens are talking to them, and they don't want to really show their voice, so they're gonna type it on autocorrect or whatever. What's that? Auto speak? What's that fucking thing called?
Yeah, text to speech.
Yeah, it's just like transcribing it. Essentially, is what they're doing.
During this time of its evolution, a lot of people were again claiming that they had messages from Ashtar, and they varied a lot. And it eventually got transformed into Guardian Action International, and then Guardian Activation International, which doesn't sound as badass, honestly, to me.
Do you think that that women out there have claimed to have been in bed with Ashtar?
Probably.
I got abducted by this very long-haired, blonde, beautiful man with blue eyes.
Probably. Eventually, they would establish Guardian Action Publications, and it was founded to be able to to control the information that was being said. They if it's not coming from the Guardian Action Publications, it doesn't matter. So, like any cult, they wanted to control the flow of information and deem what was false or not false. If you broke against the narrative, you were considered a rebel, or you were tagged, saying that they were from the opposing forces.
Sounds familiar. Sounds like what governments are doing around the world.
Religion, bro. Yeah. Religion sounds like religion. If you go against the narrative, you're a heretic. And they would establish 12 principles that each message had to adhere to as a guideline to make it authentic. And we have here a German scholar, his name, I'm going to probably butcher this, Schloss, and he refers to the Ashtar Galactic Command, Ashtar Command, as a worldwide network of several loosely organized groups, and describes much of the Ashtar channeling as akin to cargo cults. And they were blending spiritual ascension with alien technology, all this spirituality type of thing. I don't know if they were on psychedelics or not, or just really good weed. So we can't tell.
When you're on mushrooms, man, holy crap! I'd be like, this.
100%. Bro, if you take enough mushrooms, you become Ashtar.
I'm not gay, but I'll suck his dick.
That's the whole thing. So they still maintain that most of the Ashtar concepts involved a transformation of human beings via these technologies, who will then turn the planet Earth to enjoy a golden millennium. So they're all about the transhumanism, the singularity, becoming one.
The transhumanism shit, they become the machine, and Ghost in the Machine, the soul inside the machine. It's a scary thought, right? And there's this idea of that's where we're going, and people are like, oh, we're heading into the golden age, when really, supposedly, we're living through the dark age, because we're disconnected from nature and Mother Nature and Mother Gaia and Earth and the universe, and we're disconnecting ourselves and hooking ourselves up to the internet and being consumed by social media and everything that's on the internet and TV and technology in general, that we're causing ourselves to go into a dark age, even though people will claim that, like, you know what, you could put your brain inside of a robot after you die, and then you'll wake up and you'll become a robot, and your robot, you can be like, there's these things in Toronto called Clonade, where they claim to have cloned rappers amongst other people. And you can go and see it, and they'll say, with this amount of money, well, we can cryogenically freeze your brain, and then we'll be able to put you in another body when we have the technology, which they probably already do. And then they're like, you can choose your skin. If you want to look like yourself, you can look like yourself. Or if you want to look like a strapping big black man, you can look like that. You can look like a woman. You can be whatever you want. And they sell this, and I've seen video footage of people filming inside of this place, and they claim that they'll have the technology soon to be able to do all this stuff, which I think they already do.
Yeah, they do. Let's move on to the Southern Television Broadcast Interruption of 1977. It was Hannington, transmitter of the Independent Broadcasting Authority in the United Kingdom, at 5:10 p.m. on November 26, 1977.
Of course, there was in England, probably.
And there was also allegedly another transmission in 1971, but I'm not able to find the transcripts for that one. When I looked, I haven't looked again, to be quite honest with you.
If I ever saw this on TV in the 90s, like obviously before the internet, before the internet really blew up, I would have tripped out, man. That would have been crazy to have something like, even there's that case of that one guy that took over the media. What's his name? Dutch, do you know? And he came in, and his screen popped up, and it was a guy with sunglasses and blonde hair, and he had a mask on. And he cut into a TV network station and talk for like 10 minutes. It's crazy how stuff like that does happen though, like, and did happen, especially more often, 80s, 90s, 70s type of stuff, like before the blow up of the internet.
I'll post the transcripts of the broadcast because there's discrepancy. Some people say that he said one thing, that he said another, but at the beginning he says this is the voice of Vrillian, representative.
That sounds like Madame Blavatsky shit.
Yeah, of Ashtar Galactic Command, and I'll post a little clip at the end of the show if you want to check it out. It's pretty creepy, and I encourage people to listen to it while it is daytime because it freaks me out. So we have here.
Send me that.
The interruption had never been solved, and it lasted almost 6 minutes. And the people at the station were not aware of it until people started calling in, and it wasn't registering on their soundboards, so they couldn't turn it off.
Yeah,
and people start calling, "Hey, what's going on with the broadcast?" And pretty much the gist of the message was, give up your nuclear weapons, don't blow yourselves up. Same thing as Admiral Byrd, Hollow Earth, all this thing. And no one ever claimed that they did it. Nobody ever said, hey, this was a prank. And he identified himself as Vrillian, a representative of Ashtar Galactic Command. And the reports vary, some saying that he said Vrillian, some people say he said Gillen, some people say he said Astron. And if it was a hoax, the people who would have done it needed the know-how. They needed intense amount of power, batteries, whatever, and the technical know-how in order to intercept this broadcast. Mind you, it's the 1970s, late 70s, early 80s, right? The technology wasn't up to par as it is today. So very interesting that they were never able to solve what it was.
It's really weird. And the person I was thinking about that took over was his name was Max Headroom. I'm trying to bring up an image of this creepy guy. Here, I got it. So this person took over. I'd like to maybe do an episode eventually about Max Headroom because it is pretty weird. And this guy took over television. I was doing the wrong thing. Sorry, cut. Sorry, Juan, edit this shit out. I was trying to add it to the video aspect of it. So this is the guy. He took over the TV for like 10 minutes, man. Is that fucking weird?
What the heck?
Yeah, this like on like live television, broadcasted all over, and it was it's a pretty crazy story. Yeah, Max and a British fictional artificial intelligence known for his wit, and he would just come in. It was kind of crazy. Some people saying it's real and it's not real. It's a fiction, but he supposedly took over a television channel.
So we have our next character as we approach the end here. Yvonne Cole who was a supposed channeler, and there's really no information on this person or being on the internet. And she had claimed, or it had claimed, to be channeling these Ashtar messages from 1986, and it predicted the destruction of Earth and its civilizations, and the arrival of various alien cultures to happen in 1944. And she claimed, or it claimed, that the government was working with extraterrestrials to prepare for the contact. Yes.
I 100% believe that.
According to Cole, the landing would be broadcasted throughout the media, and it would include messages from Ashtar Command. And due to desensitization, jeez.
So you sound like me talking.
Did I even write that right? Whatever. Desensitized. Whatever. I don't care.
Desensitized? Is that what you're trying to say?
I don't know. Most of humanity would not accept the UFO as part of humanity's continuing evolution. So we have this post-disclosure world where we have the Space Force, we have the elites traveling into space, we have the Tic Tac video that had come out with the SS Nimitz, and the Ashtar followers, this cult, would be needed as advisors, ambassadors, and peacekeepers between the aliens and humankind, right? So we have this, again, they're trying to bring forth this movement to be like, hey, listen, we need to
stop.
We need to be these people, the ones that are going to be at the front lines of, right? They wanted to come up with a
stop
group.
The nuclear wars.
So development after the mid-1990s, the internet had spread the word, they were growing their members, and they established a single authority a source for all Ashtar messages. They created the single Ashtar worldview.
Well, I never knew how far this stretched back. It actually stretches back farther than I thought. I thought this came out in the 80s, 90s, and then they used the internet to their advantage and create all these computerized videos of like, I am Ashtar, the Galactic Commander. Please listen and heed my word and my message.
So after they established this Ashtar worldview, you know, they wanted to establish that. Any channeler who had come out with apocalyptic messages was discredited, and they claimed that these channelers had been deceived by negative space beings who had rebelled against the Ashtar Command and made similar alliances with other opposing forces.
Of course.
And no other messages were accepted unless they operated on the level of the soul. So it took them 45 years to do this. They took them 45 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah. And
now it's just on the internet.
Ashtar to some people was a divine figure like Jesus Christ, and some people claim he is Jesus Christ, Sananda, this Ashtar Sananda guy. And
if you know what, if I were to believe in Jesus, this would be the Jesus. White, blonde, blue-eyed, with a cape on, and a really tight, skin-tight, galactic, shiny silver suit.
This new framework that they had developed claimed that millions of spaceships believed to be constantly in the vicinity of Earth, and they would never interfere with the planet's surface unless there was a serious threat. Right? We have the world wars and all this stuff where you have these beings supposedly disabling nuclear warheads. And I want to talk about
a lot.
I want to talk about the Pioneer voyage.
Well, first, I got to make a comment. You know what? Ashtar is Hitler's Jesus. That's what Dutch said. I was like, that's kind of gold, man. You can cut that out. You can cut that out. But I thought
that out. Let's not talk about Hitler.
Obviously, but that was funny.
So we have here.
Cut that out, but I thought it was funny.
We have here in 1994, a small group of members had claimed to experience the liftoff experience. And they communicated. So I'm gonna get to it now. Okay. They had communicated with Ashtar via the Ashtar network, and they went aboard the ships of light that were circling the planet.
So they got abducted, so to speak.
Pretty much. But check this out: the Galactic Fifth Fleet had used physical vibrational transfers and just took their consciousness. So this entire time they were on Earth, and they were probably
that's what I was gonna say.
Like,
I was gonna say, did their soul leave? Was that the whole point? They meditated and their consciousness left their body, just like astral projection. That's what I was gonna say. Anyways, that it just seems like that's what Dr. Stephen Greer says. They meditate and they have contact with these aliens. And who knows if that's true or not? But
so the Ashtar Command, their followers, the Guardians of the Universe. Followers believe that we are destined to evolve to non-duality. Followers believe humanity exists on the 5th and 6th dimensions, although some are existing in the 7th dimension.
I've heard Earth and humanity. 20.
Yeah, that's what it is now. Earth and humanity are destined to evolve to non-duality. Becoming non-dual means individuals will no longer experience aging, disease, or death, and they will be able to instantly manifest anything they desire, including
what you gotta do? He's gotta drink baby's blood, man. See,
renewing youthful bodies, and pretty much all is one and one is all. So that's the Ashtar
one
message.
For all and all for one. The Three Musketeers, yes.
Good job. That was Ashtar Galactic Command in a nutshell. And
well, it's kind of crazy. This is so much connected to the Galactic Federation. They say they showed up over Washington, D.C., and all these videos. It's like, look, it's the Galactic Federation. It's a group of UFOs or what we think is UFOs, or who knows what we're actually looking at. There's layers to this. Obviously, like I'm a huge believer in aliens and other dimensions and things that correspond with Earth at the same time that we're here. Like that's how dimensional things work. But it is... this one seems a little fishy.
I think it was all spiritual, bro.
Yeah.
People can do what they want with their spirituality.
Yeah.
And following Sananda, helps them find their path in life. Then
honestly, 100%. This sounds cooler than following Jesus. Whatever, he's golden boy Jesus anyway. It doesn't matter. Like it's something cool. Like, you know what? Like I just don't subscribe. Like we don't subscribe to one specific thing. But if that is needed for you to connect to spirituality or feel a purpose or feel better about the way the world is working and going and all that stuff, then more more power to you, man. Like, you know, believe in what you want to believe in. And if it's a spaghetti god out in the universe, I don't care.
Yeah, so that's all I got. Hail Ashtar Galactic Command.
Yeah,
I
hail
think
Ashtar.
That's the new Jesus of our age, and I think everybody needs a little bit of Jesus Sananda in their hearts. And
I'm gonna say, you know what? Not what would Jesus do, but what would Ashtar do? You know, that's my new saying. Put that on a fucking shirt. Put that on a shirt, or edit that F word out. No, that was really interesting. We wanted to get into this too because Juan had the idea of doing certain series. Like if we're going to talk about aliens, maybe do it twice in a row about certain things. We're going to have a lot of fun stuff on Strange Juans. We're going to dip our toe back in the paranormal. And I would like soon, we'll eventually probably get back into some historical events because me and Juan, you have covered that a lot in the past. And we would like to get back into talking about some things to do with history and strange history, of course, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was Ashtar Galactic Command. Make sure to follow me on social media at the Juan Podcast on all social media platforms. Check out the Patreon, patreon.com/the Juan Podcast. And this was fun, bro. I really enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed this topic.
Yeah, same Z's. Just go to www.strangeroompodcast.com and you can find the link, obviously, to our Patreon too. Strange Root Podcast on all media platforms. It's pretty simple to find me and Juan. So check it out. And we're hoping to bring you a lot more shows like this too, because there's a lot of ideas in the pipe coming down the pipeline. So yes, it's not gas though, because that's not coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, that's not. So stay strange, everyone.
Stay strange.